Meet Anastasia Bifang, a transgender servicewoman who spent more than 20 years in the German military as a man and is now one of President Trump's most outspoken critics in her field. Last year, the US Department of Defense decided to lift its long-standing ban on transgender men and women serving openly in the military.
Because our mission, which is defending the country, has to come first.
This July, President Trump reversed that decision in several tweets.
As you know, it's been a very complicated issue for the military. It's been a very confusing issue for the military, and I think I'm doing the military a great favor.
I was really disappointed while reading it because it was my actual belief and impression that the United States Armed Forces had actually a very progressive stance on incorporating transgender into the armed forces. And, turning that around like that with a few, letters in a tweet, that really surprised me, and I think it was a major setback.
At least 18 countries allow transgender personnel to serve openly in the military. Bifang recently became Germany's first transgender military commander in charge of over 700 servicemen and women on a base in Stockholm in eastern Germany. For Bifang, the path to being Germany's first transgender commander was long.
And I think it took me almost 20 years of service in the armed forces, in the German armed forces, to realize that at a point in 2015, when I came out as transsexual, I was at a point personally where I felt, I don't think that unhappy is actually a qualified word enough to describe my emotional state of mind at that time. But I was at a point where I felt I can no longer go down this male route in my life. I want to change. I want to say who I am in terms of my gender identity. And I didn't care what would happen to me in terms of my professional way ahead in the armed forces.
Although homosexual and transsexual Germans have been allowed to serve in the military here for decades, many still complained about discrimination in the past. That has changed in recent years. The military now actively supports transgender soldiers to come out.
What happened was actually that when I came out to my bosses, that I realized a very open environment, an understanding environment, an environment that actually helped me through all the steps and phases of my transition from male to female. I don't know, the statistic would probably say with the size of the German armed forces, we would have roughly 1,300 transsexual soldiers. I wouldn't mind if 1,300 soldiers would come out in the next few years and say, yes, that's who I am, that's who I want to be, and I want to be that proud, and I want to do that proudly in the German armed forces.